Welcome to another edition of Lab to Market Live, where we talk about the newest happenings in technology and the AI world. This week we've got a bit of a hot topic, I guess, Fuad. I think this is a little bit threatening to some people, an incredible boon to others. We're talking about Dolly 2 and the newly announced Imagen. Imagen? Imagen. I've been
So,
saying it I've been saying it wrong all week as a joke, and now I don't know the real name.
well, let me try it and see what you think.
Go for it.
Imagine.
Imagine. Yes, I've been saying it the way I've been saying it wrong all week. I've trained myself wrong. The AI is broken. Our special guest this week is, and you've probably heard of him or her. It's whatever you want it to be, really. Put your own persona on this. This is Bluecap with us. Our little meeting. Oh, I was about to call it a meeting assistant. I feel like that's so wrong these days. Your business intelligence assistant, your business intelligence platform. What
Yeah.
are we going with? I always ask this question because it like changes week to week. I'll basically wake up on Monday morning. I'll be like, Justin, there's all these new features.
I think we're definitely going through transformation, and it's hard to really keep up with uh, with what we call it. We started with a meeting assistant, and now it has become so much more.
Well,
Um,
it's because you introduced it as a meeting assistant, and then people are like, so what? It just takes notes, and you're like, yes and no. That and so much more.
so, Justin, as more of us are joining, um, the topic that we're discussing is really quite mind blowing. Uh, we're talking about a whole new dimension being added to the cognitive intelligence.
A really useful dimension too, because we've both worked extensively with GPT-3 and language generation engines. But this is images, uh, images from text, no less. You can finally have that graphic designer that you just give very detailed instructions to, and they act as your pen immediately. Which we come from the marketing world. We've seen it. That's what people want, right?
Totally. So, Justin, just so that we are all up to date, what it is, we're talking about a model uh, by OpenAI, DALLE 2, and Imagen. But can you tell us exactly what it does? And then I think we're going to talk so much about real business cases.
I think the best way to explain it is to just pull up the website real quick here. And for anyone that hasn't seen it, this is a product of OpenAI. Their claim to fame so far has been GPT-3 and a lot of research papers, to be honest. Um, what Dolly 2 is a second generation of image generating AI. And what it does is it takes, textual descriptions of images and then, uses its intelligence to put together a very believable image based on your specifications. And it doesn't matter what art style you suggest. It could be realistic photos. It could be a Picasso. It could be its namesake, Dolly. Uh, it could be, well, I mean, I guess your imagination is the limit here, really.
So are you telling us that the creation would be original? It's not really just a throwback of a training data,
I mean, have you seen this image anywhere? It's an astronaut riding a horse in photorealistic style. But
so,
maybe it's also an Andy Warhol or a pencil drawing.
so it could really be
Or or
anything.
maybe he's lounging in space. That is a tropical resort in space. I that is an abstract concept. If I told that to most graphic designers, they would look at me funny because first they'd think I'm on something, and second of all, they'd be like, "How am I going to start with that?" And I would say it's basically totally original. I mean, it's taking art styles it's learned, but it's drawing you what you've specified. So it's really
And it can
straight
come
from your
up with
mind to canvas.
and it comes up with things that never existed. Um,
Yeah. Well, you
That's
know what would be wild? Let's combine this with GPT-3 and have them just work in a circle, right? Then it's really something that's never existed.
now. Um, let's discuss the workflow of creativity in a day-to-day work context. Let's use our example. We come up with an idea that, hey, we're going to do a landing page. Hey, going to send an email campaign out. Hey, we're going to do a new ad, and we have these ideas in our head, and we start communicating with our creative team, and they show us 5, 6 examples for our ideas, and we pick a couple from there, and then we have these ideas, in terms of, hey, we want a little bit of changes here. We want, this didn't come out quite right. Let's make these small modifications.
I
Um,
mean, you've just described a work week, is what you've done.
Now, tell me how that would look in this context.
I mean, as far as I understand it, these are generated within a couple of minutes. So, as you say it, what you want, uh, it's practically right in front of you. I mean, in the time it takes to have a coffee, you've got the results. Whereas, if you send off the specifications to a graphic designer, chances are you've already had a meeting about it. There's been a series of emails. You've probably had some kind of creative difference on it by the end of it. Whereas it becomes a real rapidly iterative process. So, you get your result and then you make edits to it. And, one of the neat things about this actually is there's some image editing built into it. So if you hit an image that's almost there, you can actually take that image and refine it further. And, more
That's
than that,
I
uh,
mean, wait a minute. So that's really fascinating, and I think that's what we did not see in the first version of DALL-E. The
that and the fidelity, the detail. This is like light years ahead.
so are you saying that, hey, the star that I see in the right corner there, or the top near the right, just vanish it with
Redraw this without the moon, and it'll do it. And you can actually take an existing photograph or painting, as I understand it, and load it into the system. So you can upload this image to it, and it'll build iterative versions of that. So if you wanted to see it in several art styles, for example, it'll take it and redraw it as a Warhol, as a Picasso, uh, as a black and white noir photograph. So it'll do all these things for you,
wow.
rapidly.
So I'm really hearing that it's almost the same workflow that I'm doing right now, except it would be faster, so much faster, and it would be a self kind of serving. I would be doing it myself versus, let's say, I'd be going back and forth during this iteration phase. The way I can see it now is that I can probably start visualizing my ideas by myself, and
Hmm.
then reach out to the artists, the creative minds, and say, hey, where should we go from there? This is what I'm thinking.
I mean, think back to when we worked at MediaForce, the marketing agency. How many bizarre storyboards did we come up with because we didn't want to waste the graphic designer's time? I mean, you and I are capable at dragging and dropping and even forming a circle or two, but we're by far not artists. So I mean, I can only feel for the graphic designers that would get the end result of that. But at the same time, like, even if we are intending to take this to a graphic designer at the end, the iterative process that leads up to the instructions for them, could be vastly improved by this. I mean, you could come up with an almost ready product and tell your graphic designer, add our flair to it, for example. So there is still a place, even if you want to continue that workflow. It's just a lot faster in the early stages.
Amazing. Now, Justin, does that mean that we'd be able to actually apply this at scale as well? What I mean by that is, imagine a use case of personalization. So let's say we know our profile, Justin Hacker, has just signed in. We know what color he likes, what kind of car, let's say we're selling cars, what kind of car he bought 5 days ago from us, and what are all these options that he has, and so forth. We have all this other information, how many children you have, what is your lifestyle, and so forth. As you log in, does it mean that it would be able to give you a dynamic experience, visual experience generated by the computer every
I
time,
mean, I
contextualized?
mean, it's even more than that because it's dynamic, but it's also familiar. Because like any good model that OpenAI puts out, this is going to have a training and refinement process involved in it. So you can actually fine tune this model with your own assets, your own styles, and things like that. So if you were a car company and you wanted to do different variations of a car, be it a real car or something that's conceptual, you load in the existing assets and you basically describe the parameters based on the user settings, and it'll redraw that on the fly
Absolutely. I
for
was
use in whatever
thinking,
your
Justin,
material is.
a real use case would be, let's say, Justin Hacker. I know he has a pet. Um,
Hmm.
remind me his name. Uh,
Oreo, the cat.
Oreo is right. So we know that Justin Hacker has a beautiful cat. Sorry, not a cat. Um,
No, it's a cat. It's a
it
cat.
is a cat, Oreo. And we know that he just bought this XY car with, racks on the top and so
Oh
forth.
no, is Oreo about to be in my car?
Now, imagine as you log in, for whatever reason, we have this, a similar kind of art to relate with you. Someone with a pet on the bike, on the rack, um, but that reflects your lifestyle. And this could be done on the fly as you log in at scale. If I have 2 million customers, I could be
Hmm.
giving them 2 million unique experiences, and not the same every time, because they are progressing, evolving their personality. And let's say your profile is keeping those up to date, you could be delivering one-to-one experience now, not just product recommendation, but also through visual artistic concept.
I'm going to give you $1 million idea, and I challenge everyone to beat me to the Shopify works or marketplace with this one.
Right.
Upload a picture of yourself, redraw you with the clothes from the retailer on you. Mm.
Exactly.
I know they exist already, but it's expensive tech. I guarantee you this will bring the price down to nothing.
And this should be much more precise, not only just putting the cloth on them, but also environment, context, how it's being presented,
Oh,
everything,
lighting, background, everything.
everything, right, mood, and so forth.
Well, I mean, you're now. How would I have looked at that party last week wearing this?
So that is wild. Um, that is truly wild, and I think
I do want to point out though, I'm going to burst a couple bubbles here. This is heading into beta right now, but that use case we just gave, in fact, all of these use cases we just gave are against the initial TOS. So we're going to have to wait a little longer before we put my cat in a car and a T-shirt on you.
now let's get back to Imagen, and they are doing similar thing, different technology, of course, different approach. Um, but is it true, correct me if I'm wrong, that they're claiming to be better, have better outcomes than Dolly too?
Well, I mean, let's look at your behavior if you want to find an image on the internet right now. What do? You open up Google and you go to image search and you type in whatever you're thinking.
Hmm.
I mean, that's what Google's throwing at this. Their entire database of indexed images for training data. I mean, OpenAI had to acquire a database like that. Google just has it by way of doing business. So, I mean, I think that's the first step in why this could be more powerful. I think it has way more training data, realistically speaking. Um, and I'm sure the methodologies are a little more Google than say OpenAI for this one too.
Yeah, and I think um, it's not significant to significant enough in terms of, but I will have to wait and see. Uh,
I again, like, I'm very curious to it. I have a feeling, just based on the way Google versus OpenAI already works. Uh, Dolly will be the accessible one. Google's will take some, experts on your team integrating it. Just from past experiences with both camps. I mean, Google is built for development teams and things, and that's not to say that OpenAI isn't, but OpenAI kind of is the quicker to market company, I'd
more
say,
more
in a
out of
lot
the
of it.
box ready.
I'm more out of the box, yes, exactly. And I think that could be the market differentiator. I think it's going to be easier to get into Dolly. Results wise, I mean, it's up in the air because we haven't actually got our hands on either of these yet. Um, Imagen is still a white paper. This was just released at Google I/O this year. That it even exists. I mean, there's been whispers, but it's out there now. So we have no idea when they're going to market with this. Now, OpenAI, we could call it going to market. It's really a beta. It's really for us to get our hands on it and use it in internal work. Like I said, there's a very restrictive terms of service coming. So that we're not going to see either of these productionized anytime soon. But my gut feeling is that, OpenAI will be the first to market.
Agreed. Um, Justin, I think we should get back for last 15 minutes into some real serious use cases,
Ooh.
as examples, so that um, all of us who are watching, who would be watching, we could actually take some real concepts um, and start pondering. One thing I would like to point out before we get into examples, I don't have any particular ones in mind, but we're going to think together. But the ability of now combining natural language tasks, including understanding and generation, as we have been working with GPT-3 for quite a bit of time now, but combining this sense, the understanding, and the entire domain of natural language, and blending that with vision, with generating, these two domains. Now I think we're a little bit closer to general intelligence. um, More and more senses as we add to the mix, lot more human-like decisions would be able to, not just decisions but actions, tasks would be able to perform. And this could be just the beginning of the intersection of different senses through AI.
Well, I mean, like, let's look at it this way. We've got speed and text generation via GPT-3. We've got image generation via Dolly 2. I've read that working on a sound slash music generation thing. I think I read a white paper on that, if not from OpenAI, from someone else. So I mean, the entire creative space is being recreated in AI, and it's very interesting, maybe even alarming. I don't know. What kind of deep fake could you create if you combine all three of these?
And I think OpenAI took a responsible step towards that, at least ensuring, or at least attempting to manage that. Um, well, I don't think I've heard anything from Google, but I'm sure they all have, you know, those compliance and
So
governance that
what?
they're.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that's the thing that's probably on top of everyone's mind is it's a bit of alarmist thinking, but valid thinking. Uh, can this generate images you wouldn't want to show your parents? And the answer is no for Dolly, maybe for Google. As I understand it, all instances of the human form, sans clothing, has been removed. Any kind of graphic imagery removed, not trained on it. It wouldn't know how to draw it if it tried. Um, Google has taken a different approach. They've trained it on the entire database, but what they're doing is they're writing a backstop to prevent you from generating anything you wouldn't want to do. Personally, I think that might be a little dangerous. AI is still a bit of a black box sometimes, but I'm sure they're on top of it. Nobody wants these cool images into something nefarious. So, as you said, very stringent TOS at the least and process.
All right. Now, what is a serious use case you think that could solve big problems? I was thinking healthcare. Um,
Ooh.
I'm thinking with enough data and understanding, it could probably simulate what is possible. For example, let's say an injury happens, and you can only, let's say, you only have abilities to see this level, and you can't really see what's beneath. We don't have X-ray, but think about possibilities taking pictures of that injury and asking, "Hey, recreate the possible injuries behind it," um, so that as you are doing any kind of intrusive treatment there, you have some sort of understanding how bad it could be. Um,
Yeah, that could be good for first responders and things like that. I mean, like I said, this has a vast ability to do reinforcement learning with it too. Or so it's interesting that you could load these medical images in and use it for that purpose. Yeah, that could be a boon.
um,
And then imagine emerging technologies like augmented reality glasses coming out. I think we've circulated a couple this week that are really promising. Uh, they're not going to turn into the next Google Glass, I hope. A new Google Glass is coming though, right? They look more like sunglasses, if I remember.
I think there's something being baked.
So combine that with this, and you have a whole world, literally.
So yeah, Justin, throw us some ideas, and the audience, if you have any questions, let us know. But in my mind, it's going to be a wild world. These two cognitive domains being connected together. It would be applicable in so many ways, not just a threat to graphic design, but I think that's a big one to start with. I can, maybe not entirely, but 95% of my workflow could be dependent, my creative workflow with my creative teams could be accelerated um, by a lot.
Wireframes and just prototyping. Even in the best prototyping software, I mean, it's still not exactly say it and it's done. It's say it, drag a few things, bump with the left key, bump with the right key. Hold shift this time, pixels over. It's tedious. And that's where I love AI, is taking away tedious things, right? That's where our email reply feature comes in. I don't want to think about writing an email. I just know I have to send one. Task creation, I don't name the task. I just want to do it at a later date. So like AI as a, what do you call it? A painkiller? Yeah, a painkiller. That's basically how this I could see this going. Perfect use case here. Perhaps it's all hypothesis here. I do a lot of the blogging and a lot of the content writing. It would be super nice if GPT-3 or even Google, I know Google's in documents now, creates a summary of my last paragraph, and I know I need an image there. GPT-3 and Dolly come up with my image by the time I'm done writing the article. I didn't have to
Yep.
look at it. I just had to describe it.
Yeah, and you have no worries about violation and
Yep.
rights and all those things. It's original. It came from your thoughts, just not your fingers. And
Goodbye, expensive photo sites.
no, it definitely solves those at on the fly. Absolutely. My next question then: can it do videos? Then, if it should be.
Ooh.
And
I haven't seen video, but I mean, it could be a new age of stop motion videos.
yeah,
remember
imagine.
those? Remember those old claymation videos? Maybe we're gonna see a
Yeah,
new age of that.
I mean, at very personal level, Justin, I would like it. If someone sends me a message, it acts it out in a video while it's being delivered to me.
Ooh. I mean, if you look at the process of making an animation, it's keyframes. Um,
Yep.
maybe that is an extrapolation of this.
Right, and then I could be making my own movies. Um,
Ooh, that tedious process that could be like reduced in like less than half. That's amazing.
yeah, and maybe we all would become movie directors. Right now, we take beautiful pictures because of augmented devices. There's AI cameras that takes, that conditions the camera with the best lighting settings and so
Yep.
forth as so we're not realizing all this, but there's tremendous amount of, you know
I,
hardware and software combined things going at the same time, but I'm thinking that in the next decade or so, making this kind of, for personal reasons, even for communicating, could become a norm.
I mean, people love their memes. I mean, this is a meme generating machine, in my opinion. We'll be seeing all sorts of creative ones, not just the one on the wall behind me.
Yeah. I mean, deep fake already created so many problems. A recent one, as you saw, Ukrainian president was imitated to be saying things that he wasn't saying, and it was done by Russia. So there could be, you know, really big problems. But I think people are also adaptive. We happen to recognize what's fake, what's not. There's always this distinguishment that um, we can do. But now that lines are going to be, fading away very fast, and we as humans weren't given that time to come up with that kind of, or develop that kind of cognitivity in defense of this technology. So I think that's
I
going to be
I
dangerous.
worry. I worry about when they crack the audio intonation problem, the tone of your voice, because you've seen in previous examples that they can recreate Obama's voice, recreate Donald Trump's voice, recreate Justin Trudeau's voice fairly effectively, but it sounds robotic still. I mean, you crack that, and then we have AI that can generate videos. We have AI that can generate sound and speech, and that line is going to be difficult. And like, how do you raise kids in that environment? We're going to have to be extra vigilant as tech companies how we use this, and the providers taking the slow approach. I mean, that's why you can't just go to Dolly and generate something right now. We're on the waiting list, as is tens of thousands of others. They're getting 1,000 user blocks, as I understand it. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I read on Reddit.
So
So I mean, they're being very cautious in the release of it.
an emotional use case is could be, I have a memory, I don't have a picture of it. um, and I define my memory, my emotion. GPT-3 understands your emotion, your context of language, and I feed the images that I want as constant, meaning, let's say, the face of my subject, but nothing else. And then I put my command in DALL-E 2 or Imagen, and it will be able to completely recreate, reproduce. Maybe not exactly the right version, but which I would be able to refine, as you said, there be that capability. But I think recreating memory that doesn't exist in physical world could be a powerful thing.
So I read a white paper the other day. Okay, what trained this model was they had a subject look at an image. Okay, and then they recorded the signals in their brain as they were looking at it, and then they had an AI create that image a number of ways, and then they tasked another AI with taking those brain signals, and I believe it was an adversarial model, create that image just from the brain scans, and then test it against the one that actually knows what the image looks like.
Right.
And they were drawing things uh, not perfect, but you get the gist of what the image is from these brain scans and brain scans alone. So I
Wow.
mean, as this tech advances, I mean, it's not in the realm of impossibility. They could literally hook some probes up to your brain and literally draw a memory. This is what they're working on.
I see lots of potential as these different domains of intelligence is being combined together. My only worry is that this is happening so fast. Some of us will leverage this and they will get way ahead than others who take time to understand it in terms of business context, that is.
Hmm. Well,
Uh,
the risk takers, the risk takers do two things. I mean, they gain the competitive advantage, but they also stand a very good risk of wrecking it for themselves and everyone else.
Absolutely. Now, we're almost running out of time, but we can definitely stay here for another 10 minutes at most. But Justin, I think um, we should talk about a little bit how this is going to, uh, first, in marketing. A lot of our viewers are in marketing. Second, in product design, it could be very important, even in terms of manufacturing, doing prototypes and so forth. And also in terms of, if you can talk about the angle of replacement, if it's going to replace us to a certain degree, or we're going to be able to augment ourselves with this rather, or is somewhere in between.
It's an
What
interesting question because like it already is displacing people. I mean, um, we've both been using Grammarly very successfully, and I would say that's almost as good as an editor. I mean, you can basically self-edit your own documents with a high degree of accuracy right now. These jobs are going away. Data entry is something we've been saying for years is going away. How often do we work with models that can, transfer, text off a page into digital form and then manipulate it into tables, into summaries, into real language? I mean, these are all human jobs that are going away. I mean, when I say go, I mean there's not as many. I mean, there's still people that will have to check it, and I believe that is actually one of the requirements of using OpenAI. It will never present something as truly accurate. Everything needs to be checked. Um, if I recall back to when we were getting access to it, at least in the beta form. So there will always be the checkers. There will always be the people giving the orders, but the actual doers, I think
agreed. Um, absolutely.
people do. What's the next step? Learn to be a better order giver, I guess.
Learn to use AI.
Everyone become a programmer now, except for the fact that I have an app on here that actually does most of my oh,
What is
autopilot. No, Copilot. Sorry, not autopilot. I don't have autopilot.
um, I think from almost every area, if you don't know what Copilot is, it almost codes as you code. It gives you suggestions what could be the next few lines.
Yeah, if I want to write, a function, and every application is made up of functions, they're reusable actions. So if you want to say, print my name 10 times, I describe the function in a comment. So I do my slash slash to tell it it's not code, and then write out what I want to do. Copilot writes the block of code that follows, and in like almost 90% of cases, you don't even have to edit it because it's looked at the rest of your code and gone like, all right, this is your style. This is how you name things. I'm going to do the same, which is cool. It's scary the first time because it's like, do I even have a job after this? And then I'm like, oh no, I'm a founder of a company. I'm okay.
What about the rest?
What about the rest? It still can't design. It's still not creative. I mean, GPT-3 likes to pretend it's creative, but usually in annoying ways. So, I mean, the
No,
creative mind will still be there.
I
Um,
think we're entering, in a time of coexistence of machine and machine intelligence and humans. I think we're going to relearn our value over machines. But I think in certain areas, it is impossible to outbid machines, Justin. For example, take the healthcare industry. Um, as students get out of med school, they have to start with, you know, learning everything. But the difference between a human and a machine is that machine is always collecting and getting smarter. but human, we are getting smarter, but we have a timeline. Um, and there's a starting point for us every time for every human, um,
Yeah.
like the med school, let's say, to become a doctor. But machines, once you train it, it only can get smarter from that point on, in terms of machine learning, that is. And the
There's no regression there.
right, and there is no start over for that particular understanding. um,
At best, it's a refinement. I was slightly off. I'll be better next time.
Refinement, and that's the thing, it continuously collecting all the knowledge and getting better, whereas we have, uh, if I want to get into uh, music, I will have to learn that today, and then I only have certain time until I expire. And the next person, if we want to keep music live, let's say, and I was the only person who knew music, they have to learn from beginning again. That's where machine is going to do so much better. That the collection of knowledge.
It
Um,
will and it won't, though, right? Because, like, let's use the arts for an example here, and I think the arts is a great one because I feel like it's the most human thing we do. It's because it's so much emotion, it's so much personal preference, so much experience goes into it, right? So if you have a model that's trained to compose perfect music,
yeah,
um, that's not everyone's cup of tea. I mean, there's still people that buy vinyl because they like the crackling and popping you get on that
you're
recording style.
you're
Um,
100% right. Creativity is a domain that would be. I mean, that was first hard to get in. Uh, it took few years to get into creativity since the alpha. Um, but I think I think other domains, though, mm, as we see, are soon becoming obvious that we won't be able to outbid them.
Science, engineering, they're designing computer processors now strictly by AI. I think it was I want to say Nvidia or AMD doing it. They've got processors coming that were at least AI aided design. I mean, and this is you know iterations, hundreds of iterations of chips done in half the time or less.
Right.
Um,
And
and you
as,
can't do that with a team of engineers. I mean, you would need the world's largest team of engineers to achieve what AI could achieve in that process.
and as we realize that, I think that's why this is going to be the era of coexisting. I think we're going to understand it. Hey, machines, you're great at these things, and humans, us, we're going to continuously understand us better, what we can do better than machines. But we already know some.
Is it maybe the era of supervision? We're just all the supervisors now.
That's probably it, right?
I
We have elevated ourselves.
could live with that. I could
Um,
live with that. I mean, do you want to work in the salt line or do you want to run the salt mine?
exactly. That's a great angle, and I think that's precisely it. We are all supervisors now, and that's the role we have to start taking on. Um, and I think maybe
I
that
like
could,
it.
yeah, I love it, love it. All right, so I think we're gonna close it in 2 minutes. But before you go, this is the first time we are bringing Bluecap in our live streaming. Those who missed
Ooh.
what it is, this is our uh, personal assistant that follows you um, in your conversations. And it brings insights that you may or may not have pulled it yourself, such as risks, opportunities, and other tasks to assist you, like summarizing this conversation that we just did today. And if we talked about, or if we concluded with any actionable items that needs to be conducted from this meeting, you would understand all those contacts from all the way beginning to till the end, and it will help us do our notes better, our next task better, and reminding us if we had talked about any risks or opportunities, what those could be, and follow up with us. It helps us uh, doing outreach. So if it was a meeting, it would actually write the follow-up email on behalf of us. We could just sign it off or change one or two things and then done, and so many other things. It really makes our day that much better, lighter.
I love being able to go back to anything and pinpoint a specific thing said in that meeting just by looking at like, all right, I remember the feeling of that part of the conversation. Oh, there it is. There's the thing everybody hated.
Absolutely. The emotional intelligence part is absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
It's a new age of to better understand your contacts and your previous conversations. I mean, they're not just disappearing when it ends now. You actually can do something with that information, which is, powerful.
And another example how us humans and machines are coexisting now, and it's actually elevating us, allowing us to do much more, focus more, and do allow actually help us find more time. One of the
I'm
beautiful
I'm I'm still
inventions.
waiting for it to come do my laundry, to be honest. That's a feature. When that hits the done list, I'll be really happy.
Well, one of our Dyson is working in this domain a little bit, not for dishes. That is, I think,
Ooh.
unloading your dishes and putting in the right place, or the other way around, loading it, but or both. Um, Unloading would be much better, of course.
You know what? I want on one of these to bring in a robotics expert because I want to see how AI and robotics are advancing because those are two of my absolute favorite subjects. Like if anybody out there is versed in this tech, you know, shoot me a line. I want to have a chat.
And I would be. I think you're absolutely right, Justin. We should expect that this is the time, and we are going to see, I think, a wave of innovations in the combining, the physical world and the digital cloud intelligence. And I think we're not very far from that.
Ooh, I'm excited. I want robots more than I want, like electric self-driving cars. Like I don't know. It would just be cool. I mean, I grew up on the Jetsons, Transformers, all that stuff. I want it to be real.
Awesome.
Well, is there anything else we want, or is that pretty much a wrap?
I think that's pretty much a wrap. For this one, I'm sure we'll be talking more about Delhi and Imagine a lot more in
Oh,
the
100%, especially once we get our hands on it. OpenAI, if you're listening, bump me up.
yes, and we have some cool ideas for our own Bluecap product, how Dolly 2 would apply to this. So we're really
Ooh.
excited.
I can't wait to see it. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in or watching this at a later date.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.